Turkey immediately attacked the Kurds when Trump announced that we're no longer going to be in northern Syria. So I want to show you a quick BBC report on that, and then I'll break it down a little bit more.
In Syria, a new round of warfare. The town of Ras Al Ain under heavy bombardment. One of several just inside the border in the Kurdish-controlled northeast. It's the start of a Turkish offensive that is alarming Europe, has been condemned by America, and is bringing fresh instability to the Middle East. And once again, Syrian civilians forced to flee. A local journalist saw them go.
Thousands of people immigrating to the south side. The Turkish army are shelling by mortars everywhere.
From across the border in Turkey, we could see smoke rising in the town of Talabiyat. The BBC understands Turkish troops are now on the ground there. Well, here at the border, we have been seeing and hearing the opening salvos in Turkey's assault on northeastern Syria. In the last half an hour or so, we've heard mortar rounds and artillery fire, and there has been incoming mortar fire from Syria. President Erdogan is calling this Operation Peace Springs, but for civilians across the border on the Syrian side, this is going to feel like one more round of battle in an agonizingly long war. Turkey says the aim of this offensive is to create a safe zone along its border and allow 2 million Syrian refugees to go home. Today it was creating new ones. Ankara also wants to drive out Syrian Kurdish forces it views as terrorists.
That area is needed for our safety and security for the Syrian refugees to go back to, so that they can go back to their normal lives, and there is no vacuum to be filled by any terrorist network, and also to make sure that Syria is not divided territorially.
But Turkey's assault on the Kurds could be costly. They've been crucial in the fight against Islamic State and are holding 10,000 IS prisoners. Now they'll have to focus on resisting Turkey. Tonight at the border, rockets in the night sky. The invasion is well underway as worried nations look on.
The Turks have made their move because of their long and bitter battle with Kurdish separatists. This was fighting in one of the mainly Kurdish towns in eastern Turkey in 2016. For the Turks, the move into northeastern Syria is a continuation of that fight. Kurdish separatists in Turkey, the PKK, have strong connections with Syrian Kurds. The Turkish state regards all the armed groups as terrorists. But it's much more complicated than that because of the fight against the jihadist extremists of Islamic State. While the US, Britain and others bombed the self-styled caliphate, as IS called the territory it seized, most of the house-to-house combat was done by the same Syrian Kurdish fighters that Turkey is now targeting as terrorists. Since the caliphate was destroyed and recaptured, Kurdish fighters, women serving alongside men, have been a key part of the battle against the remnants of IS. The job isn't over. The caliphate has gone, but the ideology and sleeper cells remain. Now, Kurds of the SDF, Syrian Democratic Forces, say they can't continue fighting IS if they have to fight Turkey, and IS has potentially been handed a big opportunity. There's also a big question about IS prisoners, most of whom are guarded by Kurds. With Kurdish attention elsewhere, the dangers of a jailbreak could increase.
So it really didn't take one day after Trump made the announcement for Erdogan to attack. And listen, that does lead me to believe that there was some sort of assurance behind closed doors where Trump said to Erdogan that he doesn't care what happens in the area. He doesn't care what happens with the Kurds. And I'm sure Erdogan made some sort of rationalization and made a case to Trump that Trump found convincing, where Erdogan said, like, oh yeah, no, we have all these, Syrian refugees and we don't have anywhere to put them or anything to do. So what we have to do is we got to, go back into Syria and we got to fix it. We got to go back into Syria and give these people a place where they can be back home. Like, I'm sure he made some sort of argument like that, and Trump not knowing anything about the history of the region, Trump not knowing anything about the fact that Turkey has always oppressed the Kurds massively. Not that even if Trump knew that he would care, but, like, I'm sure that there was some argument made by Erdogan that Trump found convincing that left out a lot of key facts. Like the fact that Turkey really does want to get rid of the Kurds. And, there are claims now of ethnic cleansing, and Turkey will of course argue that, no, they're terrorists. Like, everyone who we're killing here, they're terrorists. But it's kind of hard to make that case when, as the BBC accurately points out, the Kurds have been, like, the primary fighting force against ISIS. And they're guarding thousands of ISIS prisoners. And there was a big thing happening last night where, Kurdish guards who were looking after the ISIS prisoners, when Turkey was, coming in, they're going to be faced with a decision. Hey, continue to stand guard over these ISIS prisoners or run for my life, flee, and then who knows what happens when Turkey gets there. Because is the mindset of the Turkish fighters going to be, hey man, my enemy is my friend, so these ISIS fighters, why continue to have them locked up? Maybe they release them. We don't know. But it definitely is a mess. Now, we spoke about this issue right when Trump made the decision on the show, and I kind of laid out for everybody how it's a lot more complicated than in most of these foreign policy predicaments. Because you guys know my whole thing. I'm a hardcore non-interventionist. I think the only time we should use U.S. military force is to defend the country. And outside of that, if there's a genocide going on somewhere, then you can do it internationally. You don't do it unilaterally. You do it with through the UN, get the world involved, so we're a nation among nations, not a nation above nations. So that's usually my shtick when it comes to foreign policy, so you could pretty clearly predict what I'm going to say before you even go into a segment on it. However, this was a rare instance where I was a little bit hesitant because I had heard Noam Chomsky talk about this previously, and he's as anti-imperialist as it gets. And Noam Chomsky was making the point that, the U.S. has routinely betrayed the Kurds, and this is like the one region in the world where he would just keep some residual U.S. presence just to prevent basically a Turkish slaughter of the Kurds. So when I heard that gave me pause because I'm like, wow, okay. So the argument is that for the price of just keeping, and by the way, the number of troops there was only, I saw some estimates as low as 25, and then I've seen some estimates as low as as high as 1,000 or so. Anywhere between 25 troops and 1,000 U.S. troops in the area, and just their very presence made it so that Turkey knew, oh, no, I can't do anything over there because if I do anything over there, God forbid we kill an American or something. You want to talk about international crisis. So Erdogan's, he's not dumb. He knew, with the American presence there, I can't do anything. So when Trump, broadcasts, oh, we're going to get him out, that's why a lot of the counter-arguments were well, he's giving a green light to Erdogan. You go ahead. You want to do an ethnic cleansing of the Kurds? By all means. That's the criticism, is that, that's what he's doing. That's what he's saying fundamentally. Now, he's come out since then, and Trump has gone in circles, and he's like, no, I wasn't, if Turkey does the wrong thing, then we're going to crack down on them economically. Yeah, but they immediately started doing the wrong thing, and you're still just talking. So now, by the way, what is the reaction? Well, Ro Khanna laid this out in the perfect way. He says the following: if Turkey continues this attack against the Kurds, who are our allies against ISIS, Congress should take action which includes suspending economic aid, stopping arms and weapon sales, reconsidering their status in NATO. Yeah, I would do all of those things, literally right now. So what's my overall takeaway on this? Well, overall, I'm still torn as to what the proper move is for the U.S., and here's why. This is something nobody's bringing up. It was illegal that we were in Syria in the first place, okay? And by the way, I don't get it twisted Trump is withdrawing all the troops from Syria. No, he's only withdrawing them from this particular region. Huge difference. Huge difference. But it's illegal that we were there in the first place. So when everybody acts like, oh, it's such a simple solution, well, no, because the way that we should use our troops around the world, it should follow U.S. law and international law, and this does neither. So you want to have U.S. troops there? Have a vote on it in Congress. Sorry, but there's got to be civilized, humane, reasonable, objective processes here that we go through. You can't just willy, I don't know, we're going to send them here and send troops there and send troops there. So I do think it's a difficult issue for that reason specifically, because it's illegal we were there in the first place, so that's scandalous in the first place. But I do think it's also a scandal now as well because of what's happening as a result of this action that we took, and the fact that I think it's likely that, there was, Trump and Erdogan did probably talk about this behind the scenes, and Trump probably gave him the green light. So I think it's scandalous either way, but as of right this second, because we live in the world we live in and we already know what's unfolding in front of our eyes, what I would say is I would just do every single thing here that Ro Khanna is recommending. I would immediately suspend all economic aid to Turkey. I would stop all weapon sales to Turkey, and I would immediately reconsider their status in NATO. And I would say, listen, we can, if you want, we can fix all this right now, but the way we fix all this right now is you get your ass out of Syria and you stop attacking the Kurds. That's what I would do. That's the best thing we could do right now because the damage was already done when it was broadcast to the world that this is what he's doing, and then Turkey knew, hey, we're going to go in. But as of right this second, this is the best possible thing that we could do. There was a question beforehand what should have been done, but as of right now, this is the best we could do. And also, let me address one other point because I think it's really important that we make this distinction. I told you originally that the media is going to go all in on saying we got to stay there. And why? Why is it? Not because they actually give a shit about the Kurds. They don't. They don't care about the Kurds at all. We're talking about the U.S. media class here. They don't care at all. Because this is a way where they can own Trump, and the way they're owning Trump is from a pro-war position. You see a lot of outrage about what Trump's doing only when it cuts in this direction. Only when it's like, let's remove troops. Never goes in the other direction. Ever. So, the point I want to make is, they will always react like this. So in other words, if Donald Trump decides tomorrow, we're going to remove all the troops from Iraq, you would see the same reaction in the media. Oh my God, you're removing all troops from Iraq. What about the innocent civilians there? What about all the problems it's going to cause? If you did it in Afghanistan, same thing. You'd see the same thing. So what I'm here to tell you guys is this. These arguments in the case of Iraq, these arguments in the case of Afghanistan are totally bogus. Totally bogus. I mean, we've been in Afghanistan for 18 years. We've been in Iraq for, 16? How much longer do you want to stay there? How much longer do you want to stay there? And by the way, what is the definition of victory? What's victory and all that? Bottom line is, the Iraqis and the Afghanis, they're going to stand on their own 2 feet, and they'll be equipped, they'll be fine. Yes, in Afghanistan, they're still dealing with the Taliban, but there's equal numbers of, secular forces in Afghanistan and Afghanistan government officials as there are Taliban fighters. So when they make that argument of, oh my God, look at the humanitarian disaster, look at the humanitarian crisis, pulling out is a mistake. And they will make that argument. Just know, in the case of Iraq and in the case of Afghanistan, it's not true. There was more damage done by us being there all along. But in the case of Syria, and not in all of Syria, I would withdraw from the rest of Syria, but in this particular area in Syria, it's actually like the one area where there are immediate humanitarian concerns that the argument is not totally wrong when they say, oh my God, he pulled out from this area, immediately endangered the Kurds, and now there might be an ethnic cleansing as a result of it. So I just want everybody to understand the world is a complex place. And so even though the media in the U.S. will copy and paste the same argument, oh my God, you can't pull out of Afghanistan because of the humanitarian crisis and the civilian casualties, and you're going to embolden the Taliban and all that stuff. In those contexts, it's a bogus argument. Afghanistan, Iraq, bogus argument. But in the context of this particular tiny region in northern Syria, it's not, I'm sorry, but it's not really a bogus argument. And there are immediate humanitarian concerns. And at this point, since he already did what he did, I don't think the answer is to just send troops right back. I think that the answer is suspending economic aid to Turkey, stopping arms and weapon sales, and reconsidering their status in NATO immediately. And I would have a back channel right now going on between the U.S. government and the Turkish government, and I would be making them fall in line, basically, and saying this is totally unacceptable what you're doing here. So you got to work towards a diplomatic solution, and you have to use serious pressure on Turkey. But yeah, at this point, I wouldn't, because what's the media going to say? The media is going to say just send troops right back in. But I think that actually, at this point in time, since he already pulled out, that's going to create even more problems than it's going to solve. So it's tough, man. It's a tough situation. And, you know, what I would say to people is if you're not, like, conflicted on it, then you're not understanding the complexity of this particular issue. It is true, though. If we were going to be there in the first place, you got to do it the right way. You can't just send troops there and just act like, well, yeah, we're here. And that's the other thing is, what did people want? They wanted us to stay there forever? Is that also a thing that people wanted? Because I think they did. Like, Lindsey, if you spoke to Lindsey Graham, he might even tell you that. Like, yeah, just stay there forever. I don't think people are down with that either. And what you're going to see now is as the media continues to resist Trump from the right, and as the media continues to resist Trump with the perspective of, you should have stayed there longer and done more war. They reflexively take the pro-war side, by the way. And they think, see, we own Trump. And Trump's doing anti-war tweets nonstop now. So stupid for the U.S. to have ever gone to the Middle East. So stupid. But you're helping him when you reflexively take the pro-war position as he's pretending to be anti-war. Because here's the deal, guys. Despite this move in northern Syria, he's not anti-war. You want to know why? We're still in other parts of Syria. That's point number one. Point number two, we're still in Iraq. Point number three, we're still in Afghanistan. Point number four, we've increased drone strikes 432% under Donald Trump. And that number's probably more now. That's probably an outdated figure from 2 years ago. And he's waging an economic war on Iran and Venezuela. And he pulled out of the Iran deal. So the argument here is not like, let me reflexively take the pro-war position because Trump took the anti-war position. The argument here, what the media should be doing and what the Democrats should be doing is saying, oh, really? You're anti-war? Why are we still in Iraq? Why are we still in Afghanistan? You should pull out of there right now. Why are you waiting there? Why was it only this one very, very specific region of Syria that you were okay pulling out of? Why was it this one very specific region, the one region where just our presence actually was probably deterring a bloodbath? Why? Why is it that? But of course, they're not going to know how to resist adequately because they don't know what they're doing, and they have no ideology, and to the extent they do have an ideology, it's just lazy establishment thinking. So it's an ugly situation, and I hope that laid it out for you pretty clearly.